The 10 Curious Facts About Friedrich Nietzsche. Explore the ideas that made Nietzsche a central figure in modern philosophy, from his challenging "God is dead" to his conception of the Superman. In this brief journey, delve into the life, legacy, and provocative proposals of a philosopher who urges us to redesign our moral and cultural environment. Number 10. A controversial legacy. One of the most influential and provocative thinkers of modernity, Nietzsche left behind an intellectual legacy that has fascinated, inspired, and often confused both critics and followers. His philosophical heritage is vast, encompassing profound criticisms of morality, religion, and the culture of his time, proposing instead a radical re-evaluation of the values upon which Western society is based. However, this legacy has been shrouded in controversy, particularly due to the posthumous manipulation of his works and thoughts. This mishandling was mainly orchestrated by his sister, Elisabeth Forster Nietzsche, who, after the philosopher's death, selectively edited and published his writings to promote her own ideological agenda, including German nationalism and anti-Semitism, ideologies that Nietzsche had explicitly criticized during his lifetime. The complexity of interpreting Nietzsche lies not only in his aphoristic and often paradoxical style but also in this act of posthumous distortion that obscured his true philosophical stance. For example, despite his vehement criticism of anti-Semitism and German nationalism, his posthumous association with these ideologies has led to significant misinterpretations of his work. This underscores one of the most intriguing lessons of his legacy: the critical importance of textual and contextual integrity in philosophical interpretation. The controversy surrounding Nietzsche not only reveals the dangers of ideological manipulation of philosophical texts but also invites a more nuanced and critical exploration of his work, free from distortions imposed by later agendas. Through this lens, Nietzsche's legacy becomes a call to examine the depths of his thought with a fresh and unbiased perspective, recognizing the complexity and often inherent contradiction in the human quest for meaning and truth. Number 9. Critiques of traditional morality. In his fearless exploration of the foundations of morality and ethics, Nietzsche launched sharp criticisms of what he termed traditional morality, particularly Judeo-Christian morality, which he considered a slave morality. This concept, vigorously expounded in works such as On the Genealogy of Morality, underscores his perception that dominant moral norms serve to subjugate the human spirit rather than liberate it. Nietzsche argued that these norms did not arise from a will to affirm life but from a position of weakness, where values such as humility, compassion, and submission were exalted not because they were inherently noble, but because they were useful for maintaining the social order established by those in positions of limited power. The reason for Nietzsche's critique of traditional morality lies in his deep conviction that human beings should transcend the limitations imposed by values he considered unnatural and contrary to the will to power, a central concept in his thought. Nietzsche saw traditional morality as a barrier to the full development of human potential, a hindrance to the creativity, nobility, and vital strength that would characterize his ideal of the Übermensch, or Superman. This would be someone capable of creating their own values, living authentically and powerfully, beyond traditional notions of good and evil. Nietzsche's critique, therefore, is not just a condemnation of the morality of his time but an invitation to radically rethink the foundations of our ethical and moral systems, challenging us to imagine ways of life that more fully celebrate the complexity and potential of the human experience. Number 8. Philologist by profession. In the vast and complex landscape of philosophy and theology, few figures are as intriguing and multifaceted as Friedrich Nietzsche. Before being recognized as one of the most provocative and penetrating philosophers of the 19th century, Nietzsche devoted a considerable part of his career to the study of philology. This discipline, which deals with the study of written texts, their meaning, origin, and how they have evolved over time, was the professional field in which Nietzsche trained and worked during the early years of his academic career. His focus encompassed not only classical Greek and Latin but also ancient mythologies and literatures, providing a rich and diverse foundation for his later philosophical work. This philological training allowed him to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of language, the metaphysics of symbols, and the interpretation of ancient texts, tools that he would later apply in his criticisms of morality, religion, and contemporary society. The importance of Nietzsche's philological training cannot be underestimated, as it profoundly influenced his critical approach to traditional narratives, including religious ones. His ability to analyze texts, discern their origins, and unravel their hidden meanings gave him a unique perspective in his critique of Judeo-Christian morality and Western philosophy. This background provided him with the necessary tools to question, deconstruct, and reconstruct the concepts he considered fundamental to the understanding of human existence. His transition from philologist to philosopher was not a rupture but rather an evolution of his interest in unveiling and reinterpreting the deeper meanings of texts and, by extension, life itself. Therefore, philology not only shaped Nietzsche's thinking, it provided him with the methodological framework upon which he would build his radical critique of established values, a critique that continues to resonate in contemporary debates about faith, morality, and the meaning of life. Number 7. The Eternal Return. The concept of the eternal return, proposed by Friedrich Nietzsche, presents a fascinating existential paradox that challenges our conventional perceptions of time, morality, and the purpose of life. According to Nietzsche, the eternal return is the idea that all existences and events will repeat infinitely in a cyclical temporal cycle, where every moment we live will occur again, identical in every detail, through an infinite succession of cycles. This thought not only serves as a metaphysical challenge to the linearity of time but also acts as a philosophical tool designed to urge us to reevaluate how we live our lives. By contemplating the possibility of living every moment of our lives over and over again, forever, we are invited to ask ourselves, are we living in a way that we would like to repeat eternally? The importance of the eternal return lies in its ability to transform our attitude toward life and our moral decisions. Under the perspective of the eternal return, each choice carries significant weight, as it is not just an isolated act but a commitment that we are willing to repeat infinitely. This idea challenges us to live in a way that each moment can be accepted with joy, without regrets or desires to escape, thus promoting a total affirmation of life. Reflection on the eternal return urges us to seek a deeper sense of purpose and meaning in our actions, fostering an existence that we fully embrace, aware of its eternal repetitions. In this sense, Nietzsche does not offer us a doctrine of resignation but rather a vibrant call to the creation of values and the experience of a life that, even in the face of eternal repetition, we would choose to affirm again and again. Number 6. Posthumous influence. It is a testament to the depth and persistence of his thought in modern philosophical and cultural discourse. Despite living a life marked by loneliness, suffering, and misunderstanding, Nietzsche's ideas began to flourish and be widely recognized only after his death. This phenomenon highlights a crucial aspect of his legacy: the capacity of his works to challenge, provoke, and enrich critical thinking far beyond his time. Nietzsche thus became a central figure for multiple philosophical movements of the 20th century, including existentialism, postmodernism, and beyond, influencing thinkers, writers, and artists in the exploration of themes such as the will to power, the death of God, and the creation of new values in a disenchanted world. The reason for this posthumous influence lies in the very nature of his proposals, characterized by profound originality and a radical critique of the foundations of morality, religion, and Western society. Nietzsche challenged his readers to look beyond social and moral conventions, to question accepted truths, and to embrace the possibility of a cultural rebirth through the affirmation of life. His ideas offered a new lens through which to consider the human condition, an invitation to rethink purpose and meaning in a post-metaphysical world. The resonance of his thought in the 20th century and beyond is due, in part, to the continued relevance of these issues in confronting modernity, the crisis of values, and the search for authenticity in an era of uncertainty. Nietzsche, in his Loneliness and Suffering, articulated a vision of the world that continues to challenge and inspire, a legacy that, against all odds, flourished after his departure, leaving an indelible mark on the course of contemporary philosophy. Number 5. A Life of Solitude. Friedrich Nietzsche's life is marked by intense solitude, a characteristic that not only defined his personal existence but also deeply influenced his philosophical work. This solitude was not merely a circumstance of his life, but a deliberate choice in pursuit of intellectual freedom and the deepening of his thoughts. Nietzsche found in solitude the necessary space for reflection and criticism, away from social conventions and the expectations of his time. This voluntary retreat from social and academic tumult allowed him to develop ideas that would challenge the very foundations of morality, religion, and philosophy of his era. Through his isolation, Nietzsche engaged in a constant dialogue with himself, exploring the depths of his own being and the nature of human existence, resulting in a rich and provocative philosophical production that would continue to resonate through the generations. Nietzsche's choice of a life of solitude highlights the tension between the need for community and the pursuit of deep individual understanding. In this sense, his life is a testament to the struggle to find a balance between autonomous being and thinking, and the limitations imposed by social and cultural structures. This duality is reflected in his work, where there is evidence of a constant search for a superior individual capable of creating their own values in the absence of traditional ones. Nietzsche argued that only through solitude can true freedom and authenticity be achieved, echoing his own life and inviting reflection on the price and value of solitude on the path to knowledge and self-affirmation. Thus, his life of solitude is not just a biographical fact, but a central component of his philosophy, a call to confront our own shadows in the pursuit of the light of truth. Number 4. The Superman. In Friedrich Nietzsche's work, the concept of the Superman, Übermensch, in German, stands as one of his most provocative and inspiring ideas. This Nietzschean ideal is presented as a goal for humanity, a being who would transcend the conventional and moral values of his time to create his own values. According to Nietzsche, the Superman is an individual capable of surpassing the herd morality imposed by society and religion, representing a state of moral and physical superiority. The Superman thus becomes a symbol of human evolution towards unprecedented freedom, where creativity, willpower, and passion for life are its highest virtues. Nietzsche's interest in this concept lies not only in his critique of the religious and moral structures of his time, but also in his vision of a future in which humans dare to take full responsibility for their own lives, beyond pre-established notions of good and evil. In this sense, the Nietzschean Superman challenges the human need to seek comfort in transcendental ideologies, instead encouraging deep introspection and the development of fierce individualism. This call to self-improvement and the revaluation of all established values resonates deeply in the contemporary debate on ethics, personal autonomy, and the meaning of freedom, offering an intriguing perspective on how we could reinterpret our existence and purpose in the world. Number 3. A Life Marked by Illness. Friedrich Nietzsche's life was profoundly marked by illness, a condition that not only defined his daily existence but also had a significant impact on his philosophical work. From an early age, Nietzsche faced a variety of health problems, including severe migraines, digestive disorders, and visual impairments that eventually led him to resign from his position as a professor of classical philology. These difficulties led him to adopt a nomadic lifestyle, seeking climates that could alleviate his ailments. However, far from limiting him, his afflictions drove him to delve deeper into his philosophical reflections. Illness, for Nietzsche, became a lens through which he examined the nature of human existence, pain, and suffering, coming to consider these experiences not as mere obstacles, but as crucial elements for personal development and transformation. This focus on illness and suffering as fundamental components of life and intellectual creation is particularly notable in his concept of the pathos of distance, which suggests that physical and emotional pain can be a source of strength and superiority for the individual. Nietzsche argued that facing and overcoming adversity is what ultimately gives meaning to human existence, an idea that would resonate in his reflections on the will to power and the Superman. Thus, his personal struggle with illness not only informed his understanding of the human condition but also served as a testimony to the capacity of the human spirit to transcend physical limitations. Through this prism, Nietzsche invites us to reconsider our own relationship with pain and illness, not as mere afflictions to be avoided, but as opportunities for personal growth and self-affirmation. Number 2. Inspiration in music and Wagner's influence. A titanic figure in the philosophical landscape of the 19th century, Nietzsche is known as much for his challenging aphorisms as for his profound love of music. This love is nowhere more evident than in his complex relationship with the German composer Richard Wagner, a friendship that began with mutual admiration and became a decisive influence on Nietzsche's early writings and thoughts. Wagner was not only a paternal figure for Nietzsche in musical terms but also a gateway to understanding how music could express unexplored philosophical depths. Wagner's music, with its emotional power and ability to narrate without words, embodied for Nietzsche the maximum potential of art, to merge beauty, drama, and philosophical depth into a single expression. This conception of music as a superior form of art would deeply influence Nietzsche's valuation of aesthetics and his critique of the culture and morality of his time. However, the relationship between Nietzsche and Wagner would deteriorate over time, reflecting an ideological and personal distancing that significantly influenced the evolution of Nietzsche's thought. As Nietzsche distanced himself from Wagner, he began to criticize what he perceived as pessimism and decadence in Wagner's music, contrasting with his ideal of an affirmative culture of life. This shift marked a transition in Nietzsche towards the creation of a more individualistic and affirmative philosophy, one that valued the creation of meanings and values above Wagnerian cultural and musical heritage. Wagner's influence, therefore, not only catalyzed Nietzsche's early philosophical thought but also propelled him to seek his own voice, one that he would ultimately express in revolutionary concepts such as the Superman and the will to power. The complexity of this relationship illustrates the influence that music and cultural exchanges can have on the evolution of philosophical thought, showing how music can act as a mirror of the deepest human and philosophical concerns. Number 1. Nietzsche and his proclamation of God is dead. In his provocative proclamation of God is dead, Nietzsche encapsulates one of the most penetrating and controversial reflections on modernity and its implications for faith and morality. This assertion, far from being a simple rejection of theism, is rooted in a broader observation about the decline of religious influence in 19th-century European society and how this change affected the foundations of morality and traditional values. For Nietzsche, the death of God was not so much a theological event as a cultural and philosophical phenomenon, reflecting the progressive distancing of Western societies from the Judeo-Christian principles that had guided their ethics and worldview for millennia. This idea is scattered throughout several of his works, but it is in The Gay Science where it is articulated most clearly, serving as a call to recognize the profound transformations in Western thought and morality. The reason for this proclamation lies in Nietzsche's diagnosis of the crisis of modernity, where reason and science begin to occupy the place that religion once held, leading to an existential vacuum and a crisis of values. Nietzsche saw in this process an opportunity for the re-evaluation of all values, a moment in which humanity could, and should, create new systems of meaning that did not depend on transcendent or divine truths. This challenge thrown down by Nietzsche not only invited reflection on the autonomy and the capacity of the human being to give meaning to their existence without resorting to a supreme authority but also anticipated many of the cultural and philosophical tensions of the 20th and 21st centuries. The proclamation of God is dead continues to resonate as an echo in the contemporary debate on faith, morality, and the place of the human being in a possibly indifferent universe, urging a continuous examination of how we construct meaning in a world that Nietzsche perceived as inherently lacking it.